This is a Stock Trading Reality Podcast, episode 111.
It's a lot slower, and it's really just looking for support levels and resistance levels. It's a lot less stressful for sure.
This is the Stock Trading Reality Podcast, where you get to see the realistic side of a trader's journey. Get inspired and stay motivated by everyday normal people who are currently on their journey to trading success. And this is your host. He wants to start a beehive business. Anyone got some advice for me? Play trader.
Yes, now I realize for you loyal listeners that we've already had somebody that has done harvesting of honey, so does beehives. And this is definitely to give full credit where it's due, where this idea came from. Justin T was, that interview. But yeah, I am all for trying to build a bee business. So if you have any advice for me, then let me know. Give me feedback. I know Justin T can offer me probably all I need, but I don't know. Maybe there's a difference between Oklahoma bees where he's at and other bees. I don't know, but all I know is that totally fascinates me. And I think it may be a subconscious thing since I'm sort of allergic to bees. Maybe that's what's really got me intrigued. But yeah, do you remember that? Let me take a step back. We also have our esteemed co-host here. He's won the podcast co-host of the year for 7 years running now. Do you have first off, do you remember that interview with Justin T and the bees?
I certainly do. And similar to you, I'm actually a pretty positive I'm allergic to both bees and wasps, but
shellfish.
And shellfish, yes, you got it. So thank you for not picking any of these crazy restaurants to kill me on any of the meetups that we have planned. But actually, I want to have a beehive, and I also want to have like a chicken coop. I want to have like a couple different kinds of livestock, essentially. But yeah, beehive is definitely one of those ones because they are super important to not, pretty much everything. So
right,
yeah, if the bees die, we die.
I was gonna say you're not even being funny though. You're not even trying to crack a joke because at the end of this interview. We talk a little real estate real quick, and you're in Denver, you're in Colorado, and you're looking for land. So when you get this land at some point, you're being serious. You would like to add a beehive to this land, correct?
Would absolutely love to have a beehive, a chicken coop, and then probably a couple other animals and a farm, or not a farm per se, but like kind of a garden and stuff like that, and grow vegetables and stuff. But yeah, totally, absolutely, 100%, 1,000% serious about that. So,
okay,
not all joking aside.
I was gonna say people may find that a sarcasm. I knew you weren't because I had the more
Chose
context.
wants a chicken coop, haha, real funny guy, city kid. Yeah, no, seriously,
not anymore.
We're trying to do it. Yep.
Yeah, I want to talk about more stuff with you, but I got to remember I'll be interviewing you in person here in a little while, so I don't want to talk about all the good stuff here. But we'll move on to our interview, and today we are bringing back a past guest. Etan is his name. We call him that. It's E-T-A-N. He was on episode. Actually, I'm not going to tell you what episode he was on since we discovered that early on in the podcast. But yeah, this is another returnee. We've been getting good feedback. People like to hear about or hear from people that we've already had, and he's made quite a bit of a change in a good way, and it wasn't a change that he necessarily decided to make on his own. It was just kind of life forcing the change upon him, but he reacted very nicely to it, made some adjustments. How do you like that, Ches? That was pretty good on my part.
That was a pretty good plug on that one. That was a pretty good plug.
He made some adjustments, and yeah, he's doing very well for himself. So I don't want to do any spoilers or anything like that. And also, we're going to just start off with, it'll sound random, but we had a interesting first topic that we talked about before the interview was even supposed to start, but it actually provided a really interesting kind of just point about life, trading, emotions in general. So the interview will start off a little goofy. We're all just talking, but stick with it, and there's some good stuff coming your way.
Okay.
Ches, you ready to go?
I actually had a question for you before we started.
Okay.
I could guarantee you've never had this on a podcast before.
What's that?
But I'm probably going to get chewed up, but it's worth it. I actually count cards, and I've been playing blackjack for half a year now, and I actually do pretty well, but
Blackjack's
indirectly.
Great.
What was that?
I said blackjack's great. It's a system-based game that's the only game I play. Anyways, carry on.
Oh, really? Yeah, so maybe I won't get chewed up by Ches anyway.
Well, no, I mean, blackjack is definitely, we won't put this on public air so you don't get your kneecaps broken. Obviously, the the risk reward here is you ended up in the back alley dumpster somewhere. But yeah,
it's not that bad.
If you can put probabilities in your favor, which obviously you can if you can count cards in blackjack, let alone just blackjack and normal, then I'm not going to chew you out. It's all about probabilities.
But I actually wanted to thank you indirectly with that, because it's actually your courses have actually helped with that, even with the risk versus reward and everything like that. And it's funny going there and sitting at tables playing all the time and seeing all the people with their emotions and how bad it gets when I'm sitting there and have no emotions because I know when to bet, when to not bet. So
that's true. I guess I can't say I've ever sat around a blackjack table, but I that would make sense that people probably get emotional. Probably same thing in poker, I bet, and that's probably when you start to you know, what is it? Read the person, not the cards or whatever.
Poker, you're generally playing the person on the other side of the table more than anything.
Yeah.
So if you could keep your emotions in check in that too, I'm sure that helps.
Yeah, no. So we definitely won't use your real name. We'll just call you Etan. That way you don't get your kneecap broken. So, but I don't know. Maybe we will. Maybe we will have to just play this live, because that was actually a super interesting segment in and of itself, just because you're right. Trading and stuff like that. And life, I guess life in general, right? Just keep your emotions.
Life in general, it applies to so many different facets of it. It's amazing.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know. We'll see if we want to throw that in there or not, but we'll start the interview right now. So, hey, Etan, welcome back to the show.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Now, I'm not going to throw Ches under the bus. I'll throw myself under the bus. But I don't know, maybe Ches, maybe you just have a brilliant memory. Or Etan, I guess. Do either of you know what episode Etan was first on?
Good question. I should have checked this before the show.
Well,
this is back in like 50s, 60s maybe, I want to say.
Well, we'll take, but I'm going to say like you were the first 25. Okay, I have the answer here. Ches, what's your wager? No cheating.
This is nonsense, because I was trying to use the search function on the website. And
I already used it.
Screwed something up.
I said top 25, so what's your...
I'll say 49.
I just cheated, so I can't actually wait.
Okay, all right. 38 you were on, Etan. So, wow, that's been many weeks ago, considering we were up into the hundreds at this point in time. So
doesn't feel like that. It feels like it was like yesterday.
It does. Time really does fly. And I'd be lying if I said I remembered every little nook and cranny about your journey and your story and all your background. I do remember, though, you're like a very visual person, so that's why charts kind of clicked with you. So we'll start off there in a nutshell, because, again, if people, for you listeners, want to hear when Etan was first on, episode 38, you can go back and hear all the nitty-gritty details. But for listeners right now, kind of nutshell things. What got you interested in the markets, and where did you first start out in the markets? Because I know you're doing some different stuff now, but just kind of nutshell things from start to how you found Clay Trader, and then we'll kind of pick up from there.
Oh man, gotta go through this again, huh?
Nutshell it though this time. You don't have to give us that.
Just a quick summary.
Yep.
Quick. I've always been interested in investments and stuff through school. Eventually, I had a friend get me into getting an E-Trade account and everything like that. Had some fool's gold, gave away a lot of that back and then some, and pretty much paper traded. If you listen to my last podcast, I paper traded for I don't even know how long, 5 months or so, maybe even 6 months.
Weren't you still paper trading when we did the podcast too?
Yeah, I was still paper trading.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, okay. I remember that.
Oh, awesome. All right. Well, yeah, because sorry to cut you off, Ches, but this will be a first, because that's nothing new in terms of people just paper trading when we interview them on the podcast itself. But you're not. Are you still paper trading, or are you with real money now?
I am not, but as you know, as I'm pretty much completely switched gears and doing completely differently with option strategies, delta neutral, and all that fun stuff.
So you joined the dark side of lazy farming, which is a great place to be.
This is with real money, though, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, now we have some direction here. So, Ches, I want to get your agreement here, or I want to get your thoughts. But I say we just pick up things back from the last podcast. He was paper trading, so let's just pick up right from that point. What kind of happened next, and then we'll eventually reach up to where he sits right now. Would you agree that that's a logical manner, Ches?
I think we'll keep this at a 7-minute podcast and just say that Etan has gone to the dark side with me, and he's doing great now, and that's all you need to know. Thanks for coming out, guys. We'll see you next week.
Exactly.
The end. I think it's a great idea to kind of pick it up. So, yeah, you're obviously paper trading quite a different things, and we always talk about kind of finding where your comfort level is. What kind of trading fits you best, jives with your personality, stuff like that. So, I think Clay, you nailed it on the head. Let's just pick it up from there.
Yeah. So you were paper trading. I don't remember what you were paper trading, but tell us what you were paper trading back then, and we'll just kind of see where that takes us. So, what the heck were you paper trading back during episode 38?
Pretty much exactly, probably quite similar to what you, Clay, and I believe Nate Wilson also do. That's what I was doing on a day in, day out basis, and I was doing fairly well. If you remember, I still have my logs of the paper trading, and I was doing well every single day. I don't know if I was as consistent as Wilson, but I was pretty consistent.
And just for context for the listeners out there, when he says that trading like Clay and Nate Wilson, what he means is kind of like shorter term equity scalping, essentially. But yeah, just for context for those of you who don't know how Clay or Nate trade.
Yeah, in and out fairly quickly, not holding positions overnight, etc. like that. And then eventually, my work just got, as I don't know if I mentioned this in the other podcast, but I'm similar to what IT Nate over here does. I'm a programmer, so I work actually for the lottery, oddly enough, and I help develop their web pages and yada yada yada. Don't need to get too much into that, but work picked up a lot. I was getting so busy that I wasn't even being able to paper trade anymore. So along came, I believe it was Cubs that brought it to my attention. I mean, I've always known options fairly in and out. I knew that before I knew even charting and everything like that. And eventually, I don't know if you want me to say the other podcast or radio show, you could cut it out if you want. It's the Tasty Works or Tasty Trade.
Yeah, Tasty Trade. They're a good. My complaint about them is they seem to take forever to get to the point, and then when they get to the point, I don't know if they explain things the best. However, to give full credit where credit's due, they have some super interesting studies that they do on the show. But Jez, do you kind of get that same feel? I mean, I'm biased obviously because I put together the options training courses that we have. So I feel like their explanations are kind of confusing, but they have awesome studies for sure.
Yeah, no, they have awesome studies for sure, but I've actually developed so I follow some of their stuff and check in, here and there all the time, but I end up skipping through about half the video just to get to the part of the study. I mean, granted, I get it. They're supposed to be kind of almost to compete with a news network, so there's a lot of kind of air they fill, and you get to learn them and their personality and stuff. But yeah, generally, like you said, Clay, it does take them a good amount of time to get to the point. But anyways, yeah, so you said you started listening to them?
Yeah, I followed a lot of their radio shows and all the, like I mentioned earlier, the delta neutraling and just it's just a bunch of different numbers and math, and that's what I've always been pretty good at. So I figured, hey, I kind of know I pretty much know how options work, so this is going to be a good basis to add to anyway, like that. And just as Ches mentioned, it's lazy man, as we call it, farming or theta farming. I only have to check on it once, maybe twice a day, if I even have to check it during the day. And not much is really going to happen. It might go up, might go down, but I'll always have that ability to mitigate risk, manage the positions if I need to.
Nice. Now, I'm just curious. So you were paper trading, my quote unquote strategy, like Jess said, just high time frame or low time frame intraday scalping. And then, and you were doing well on paper and everything was great. And then work picked up. And how long, were you totally out of the markets, or what was going on when your job really picked up?
I don't know if you guys know. I don't even think I was in the chat channel every day.
No, you definitely fell off the grid for a while, but I was wondering, was that the same as your market, practice too? Did you totally just kind of put the stock market on the back burner? Or were you still kind of dipping your toe in here and there?
Yeah, I would dip my toe in here and there and kind of check. I still would try to keep my eyes on charts as much as I could, because you get rusty with these things. So I don't want to ever get rusty, because I do plan on getting back to that strategy again in maybe the near future, as soon as I get back to maybe paper trading a little bit more.
Right. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're still planning on just paper trading, since it is a very different strategy than the farming you're doing. So how long did all that take place from the time you're like, oh, I can't even paper trade anymore, until you got back into, you know, the option stuff? What are we talking, multiple months? But, you know, try to give viewers, or listeners, I should say, an idea from a time frame perspective.
Oh man, trying to remember. I believe when I was paper trading, it was about 6 months or so. Probably ended last year around February 2016. And I don't think I really did much last year at all, because I remember my tax guy not having as much of problems implementing all my stock trades and everything, because it wasn't nearly as bad as the year before.
So it's safe to say this went on for multiple months, though, where you were just pretty much away from the market.
Yeah, for the most part, probably up until, let's say, maybe late last year, October maybe, if I want to give an estimate.
Ches, have you, I know your journey, not quite as long as mine, obviously, but did you ever have any of those where you just stepped away from the market? Let me ask it this way, Ches. What's the longest time that you've stepped away from the market for whatever reason?
That's actually a great question. I think probably the longest was only maybe 1 or 2 weeks, and that was more so out of frustration, or I was switching brokerages or something or other. But sometime, I think a long time ago, right in the beginning, I kind of got hosed. And it's so being away from the market is an interesting subject, because it depends on how you define it. There was definitely a period of right when I kind of, you know, discovered you and your training. I actually closed my accounts and put all of my money into education. I literally took the entire account and I said, I'll rebuild it, but I don't want to rebuild without kind of a solid base. So I guess the thing is, though, I was always watching the market every single day. I had a tab open at work, watching the market on like TradingView, and I would just kind of keep tabs on stuff like that. So honestly, probably, I don't think I've ever really taken a real serious break, because, even during the wedding, I just went on a 5-day trip. I still have positions on, so I guess technically I'm not out of the market. So I've been in it pretty much since I got involved, I guess.
Okay, yeah, and that's what I thought, but I wasn't sure. Maybe if there was a little nook or cranny, that I hadn't thought about. But that's true. For Etan's sake, you were pretty much forced away. You didn't want to go away. It's not like you quit paper trading out of frustration or anything. You just, life got in the way. And your guaranteed trades got in the way, right? Your job, where, hey, this is a guaranteed trade. It's paying me money. I'm going to take this trade every single time, which was a very wise move on your part. So we'll fast forward. And did you ever try the scalping method again, or is it just options, right when you kind of jumped back in and got more involved? Was it just the options from that point forward? Or, like I said, did you try anything else, or was it options right from the get-go?
I actually had tried futures that ended up not working out too well. I found out quickly that level 2s don't work as well with futures as they do with stocks. So I rely on level 2s probably just as much as you do, and I go by that, have a good basis around that. So
all right, so explain what you mean by that, because that's a real interesting topic. What do you mean that level 2s didn't impact futures as much as, say, some of those equity scalp trades that you were talking about?
Yeah, it's really just everything's always one tick away, as they would call it. So, I mean, it's just tough to gauge off of that when you don't know when certain times are going to be different than other times.
Now, my question is, were you using charts at all with your futures trading, or?
Oh, of course.
Okay, but it sounds like level 2s played quite a bit, or you thought they would play quite a bit of role into it, and it just didn't work out. So my follow-up question would be, did you ever try futures just and say, screw this level 2 stuff, I want to just focus on charts? Or was, I guess just kind of walk us through what made you finally get out? I mean, was it strictly level 2s, or was there more to it than that?
I actually tried wheedling. Probably not even. I ended up hiding my level 2s when I was trying to do some futures. I even ended up asking Hooch, who I believe you just had the recent podcast with, his comeback, and he gave me a couple tips here and there, because this is when I switched to interactive brokers, and I just could, for whatever reason, it's just something didn't meld there with me, even though I was trying the charts. It's just something, it moved maybe differently. Maybe the risk per tick was a little bit different than I was used to with the stocks. But it's something just didn't match there was no chemistry there for me, I guess I could say.
I like how you put that chemistry. Ches, I mean, do you have any... I've never traded futures in my life. Ches has traded futures. I mean, do you think it was just a lack of chemistry? Because I don't know. I can't really... Do they trade that much different? Or, I mean, you would be much more in tune to this than I would.
So here's the thing about futures that I think a lot of people neglect. So obviously there's a lot of people who are interested in the market that don't meet, pattern day trader requirements, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You do not need $25,000 to trade in the market. So they usually look at things like Forex and futures, since there is no PDT there, and that includes myself. These are reasons why I took a look at these products. Now, the thing that everyone fails to remember, though, is that, say with shares, say you don't have to trade 500 shares every time you trade. You don't have to trade 1,000 shares. You could literally trade one share. You could trade 5 shares. You could trade 10 shares. You can always keep your exposure as small as you want, almost incrementally, because it's not, so for options, that's a whole different ballgame. They're all worth 100 shares. You all have that. But with futures, here's the thing. So just to give an example, so the price of oil is, I don't know, 50 something, maybe it's in the 49s. I have no idea what it is. Every single penny that oil moves on a futures contract is worth $10, okay? And I don't think people understand. They might say, I totally got, risk management down. I totally got technical analysis down. And they might trade the chart great. But the thing is that if you're risking 25 cents, which it's not absolutely horrible by any means on a $50 stock, that's actually pretty tight. If you get stopped out, that's $250. So
on one contract, right?
On one single contract, yeah. So I think the problem that most people have, and this totally goes to myself, is you can get into futures with a low amount of capital. But the thing is, you'll start trading like me, where you're like, I'll put a 5-cent stop loss or something like that, and you will get whipped out all day. And the reason it is because mentally, $50 is a big amount to risk for some people. For me, $50 is like, I don't want to lose $50 like 4 times today. Like, that's not, and to me, it started embedding bad habits where I would just start taking profit as profit. I was like, I wiped out that, or, I got, an 8-cent move. And don't get me wrong, if you traded futures charts unemotionally, Hooch is a great example of this. You can make, on one of these days we were doing the math on it, you could have made $2,000 on a single contract if you just followed, a certain moving average for that time period. And that's, like I said, it's not a holy grail, but, you can totally wipe out, say, a $250 loss, no problem. But for me, that the amount of risk is just ratcheted up so high. The ES mini futures that a lot of people, most of us watch that, the SPY moves based on that. That's $12.50 every time it ticks up or down. That can add up quickly. There's no real way to kind of make it smaller, and there's many kind of contracts and things like that are half the size, but they're not very liquid. To me, it's hard for newer traders. There's no gentle way to ratchet up into that. So I understand totally why people with larger accounts and have done it for a long time generally do better in futures. But yeah, it's a very, very fast moving. You can make a lot, but you can lose a lot. And to me, emotionally, I couldn't handle it. It was just too much.
Ches, with that explanation, if you were here right now, I'd give you a hug.
I felt like I was very long-winded, but I tried.
Right now. So, and to Eaton's point, I love how he said he just didn't have the chemistry. Based off what Ches has said, I would say chemistry, and the way Eaton was defining that is, he just wasn't, his personal risk tolerance, his personality was not comfortable with the flexibility that futures allow for. And really, not much flexibility. Ches summarized it perfectly. With stocks, options, you have a whole bunch of flexibility that you can manipulate and mold and fit into your personal risk tolerance. But with futures, it's a little bit more rigid. Again, we're not saying that futures are a scam. We're not saying anything like that. We have plenty of members that do well with it. But, the whole quote-unquote chemistry, would you say that's an accurate description, Eaton? You just didn't feel like you had enough flexibility to make the futures fit into your personal risk tolerance?
Oh, yeah, that was spot on.
Okay, booyah, Ches, right there, spot on. You nailed it. So, yeah, great talking points there. So I'm glad we I'm glad we dug a little deeper. I had no idea. Actually, I think I take that back. I do remember you asking some futures questions way back when, but I'm glad we brought that up. So now I'm curious. You changed brokers to Interactive. Now I find this curious just because, as Ches can attest to, I swear at least 10 times a day somebody's asking us about brokers, what should we use, and some sort of question about brokers. So you say you switched to Interactive Brokers. who were you using and why did you switch? I think a lot of listeners, I mean, this is just clearly a topic of fascination.
I actually didn't completely switch. I initially had E-Trade, of course. That's all. I only have a couple IRAs there right now that I don't do much with. Maybe I'll add a little bit here and there, so that's fine staying there on E-Trade. The majority of my stocks and mutual funds and all that stuff, and I'm sure we'll get into the whole grow itch, and what I'm going to be adding is going to be a TDA or a Thinkorswim rather. And the interactive brokers, I just initially put in a certain amount of money and planned on just doing futures and such with it, as for the exact reason that Ches was mentioning, where you don't have to worry about the PDT and taxes might be a little bit more favorable for long versus short, and yada yada yada. And recently I didn't switch again. I went to Tastyworks. I added a small amount, and I've been doing what I've been doing lately with the advanced option strategies.
So what was your main driver to Tastyworks? I think I know your answer, but I don't want to speak for you.
Commissions.
There, okay, that's what I thought. So we'll put a link in the show notes to Tastyworks. I always get them. Tastyworks, they're still, I don't know, Ches Eaton, how they're what, at the time of this recording, 5 months? Or is that, or are they not
they're
even
about
that?
just barely 4 months for getting most of their customers in now. There was a long wait list, but yeah, they're 4 months new.
Okay, so
Yeah,
again, if
babies.
if you're interested in options, we'll put a link in the show notes to Tastyworks, and you can check them out. But yeah, definitely a very favorable commission structure. So, we'll definitely touch on that grow rich stuff later. So I guess walk us through, we know that you're doing quote unquote options farming, which are advanced, option strategies, something that anybody can learn. You just gotta, don't be like me. Don't be like, oh, great, advanced option strategies, all the stuff about iron elephants and back tooth, buck toad, toads.
Buck toad cheetahs, yeah.
Exactly. Oh, this stuff. Don't be like me that was scared for like years. If you just break it down and if you just, have somebody show you in the proper way, ideally that would be me. But if not, that's cool too. All I'm saying is don't give up on it so fast. Don't turn off the interview. Oh, great, they're going to talk about advanced options. I promise it's not like some people make it out to be. So you're in advanced options. How long did you paper trade them before you started to actually put real money on the line? And kind of what was your paper trading process? Because obviously that I'm interested in that. It's always interesting to see how exactly did you paper trade? What process did you use to finally bring yourself enough confidence to go with real money? So walk us through your advanced, options trading, paper trading.
First, I want people not to be afraid of the term advanced, because
good point.
Like Clay and Ches have mentioned, anybody can do it. If we could do it, you could do it. But oddly enough, with the advanced options type of strategy, I don't know if you could see that I'm doing quotes with my fingers. I've been doing those actually longer than I've even known charting. So I paper traded and did those. I don't know, how long have I been here? A couple of years now. So before then,
time flies, man. I have no idea.
Man, but.
So you had been doing advanced options before you even came across charts,
Exactly.
Came across the clay trader community. So I guess my original question still stands. When you were just dipping your feet back into the water, was there any paper trading at all, or did you just go right into real money?
I've definitely paper traded a little bit, but I mean, I had a pretty good grasp, so it wasn't nearly as long. Maybe it was for about a month or so, using the I believe it was Thinkorswim paper trading. And because, I mean, Thinkorswim, that's where I started with for the options and everything. They just had a really good program for that. And
for context for listeners, like Clay had just mentioned, and same with Etan, he had actually looked into advanced options, and like I said, don't let that phrasing kind of turn you away. He looked into that before he'd even looked into charts. So he definitely you definitely had some background already. You understood some mechanics of it, and while you didn't have all the pieces of the puzzle at the time, you saying you only paper traded for a month, you've definitely spent much longer than a month kind of understanding them, whether it was paper or live way back in the day. You've done some, so you have some familiarity. So you said like one cycle of paper trading just to make sure you kind of understood it again?
yeah, just kind of like a refresher, knock off the rust. You know how it is.
And I mean, I actually did kind of the same thing, because I actually went from kind of advanced options after Clay put his course out to back to day trading and then I paper traded for I think 2 cycles, so probably about almost 2 months before I actually funded my account, and been doing it for quite a few months now. But
Chaz, explain what a cycle is real quick.
All right, so for cycles, so not to give away too much content because it doesn't, I mean, you guys couldn't put it together even if you just heard this. Essentially, a cycle is, most trades you're looking for are generally 45 days out. So I call that a cycle, and while it only takes probably half the time to generally get to profit, I just assume it takes about a month. So a cycle for me is a 45-day cycle, which technically would be 90 days, but since I take profits at about the halfway point, it's about a month. So I conservatively, I say it's about a month for a cycle. Okay,
so cycle is just what you are gauging for the strategy when you may start to see some profits show up, because again, what Etan and Chez are doing, the advanced options, this is not a day trading strategy. So if you're somebody that I want profits like in the next 5 minutes, these would not be strategies for you. So Etan, so you go basically a cycle, you start to put money on the line. I mean, what sort of size were you using an account? I mean, were these like $30,000 positions? Were these $100 positions? Walk us through kind of, because you are now officially going from paper to real money. So what sort of sizes were you using from a position standpoint?
I actually just started my Tastyworks account with 3,000. So I mean that's not too much, but all of my positions, if I know Chez and I think even Cubs had mentioned to me before that I had a lot of the smaller positions going on, and I know a lot of people like to spread it out, have more spread in their. I'm trying to think of what the word would be. More spread.
Like diversification?
Wider strikes?
Yes, there you go. That's what I was looking for.
And for context for our listeners out there, wider strikes just essentially means he's usually collecting more, which means his profits are higher, but his risk is also higher. So they're kind of, totally proportional in a sense.
Yeah, so exactly that. I've actually, since it was a smaller account, I wanted to have maybe smaller strikes, so maybe $1, $2 away. But my risk is typically under $200 per position, so it's a lot easier to manage rather than having to, if something's going against you, you have to manage it and adjust it accordingly. And when you're rolling and everything like that, I know that's going to sound a little advanced right now, but it's going to add up. So if by starting off small, if a position goes against you, you won't have that much capital. You'll still have capital left over.
You have flexibility is what you're saying.
Yes,
here.
Exactly.
So just to clarify, and for listeners, when you say $3,000 you started with, that doesn't mean Etan's like, all right, I got $3,000, boom, in one position. This $3,000 was spread around, correct?
Yeah, I think, and his positions are about $200, right? Isn't that what you're saying?
Yeah, some were even under. Some of them were even holding less than 100 buying power. So I think I had like 16 or 17 positions or crops, as we've been calling it in the chat channel, at one given time. I believe I only have 11 right now, so I think I'm slacking right now.
Yeah, no, what are you doing, you lazy bum?
But I think I want to make a good point here too, because you pretty much nailed it, Etan. Especially, probably one of the easiest thing for these types of trades is to put the trade on. You could totally set it up, and it ties totally into the way we use technical analysis. You make a decision based on what you can see currently and the past. We have no idea what's going to happen in the future. You're doing the same exact thing for options, but the thing is that there are strategies to not only reduce your losses, but essentially recoup your losses and then make profit, even if it goes totally against you. And I had a gold trade where I had to do that. It took me like 3 months, and it's not averaging down. I promise you, we don't advocate averaging down here, but I think you nailed it, Etan, in the sense that you starting with smaller positions, even if one went totally, way out of control, you've already reduced and kept your risk small, and it's a good kind of way to practice how to manage that. You could totally be fine and put food on the table and have a roof over your head if, say, a $200 position went against you. And say you just lost it and you're like, well, that trade didn't work out, that sucks. But at the same time, with it being that small, you're totally fine to kind of manage it, see how you can recoup this loser, doing different strategies and stuff like that. And I think those mechanics are the hardest things that people have to grasp. When something goes wrong, how do you how can you remedy the problem? It's not just as simple for advanced option as just closing them. You totally can, but there's ways to essentially reduce that loss and, even go back to break even just by, moving a few strikes, just doing some changes. But those kind of mechanics, generally people find it very difficult. So if you have like a $10,000 position on in your $25,000 account, if that one goes poorly, not only is your head not clear because most of your account is in that position, you now have to you have to actually use your brain and do some critical thinking. And I think with that much money on the line, you're not going to make the most rational decisions.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here thinking, I remember once, Ches, you came to me and said, hey, you got to put together a course on like rolling and managing and adjusting all these options. And
somebody sent me an email asking you to do that. That's right, though.
Yeah, and I'm just like, that's really an impossible course to put together because Ches nailed it. If you want to close it out, that is a choice. And in some cases, that may be the best choice. In other cases, maybe something else would be a better choice. But all these choices boil back down to personal preference. So, for someone to put out a course, okay, you do this, and then you do that, and then you do this. Well, that's just... If somebody's not comfortable with that, they're going to drive themselves insane, and it's not going to work out. It's all about finding the mechanics, finding the adjustments, the rolls, just closing the positions that work for you. Yeah, there's math. Yeah, there's numbers that goes behind it. But I don't care what the math and statistics say. At the end of the day, if you're not comfortable with it in your heart of hearts, if your your personal risk tolerance is still being violated, it just doesn't work out. I mean, Am I speaking accurately here? Yeah. Am I speaking accurately? I mean, I don't want to step on you option farmers' toes, but statistics can only go so far when you have real life risk involved.
Yeah, and it's similar to, when people set up their RVR trades and things like that. Some people are much more risk adverse and some people are willing to kind of take on more risk. You pretty much nailed it. There is, and in trading as a whole, I'm a firm believer that there is no one size fits all because everybody's personality comes out. And like you said, if you're not comfortable, you're going to be doing stupid stuff. You're going to be giving away more money. You might as well just set it on fire. So yes, now it's my turn to be over here and crying, Clay, because you pretty much nailed it.
Ian, do you have any tissues on you? Ches and I both need some tissues. Well, there you go. Too bad we're not all in the same room, and I have that room right now. That would. Are you going to be in Columbus, by the way? Before I forget,
I don't believe I will be. I was supposed to go to Arizona a few weeks ago, but my boss said no dice. So
where do you live? I can't remember. You're where do you live?
Over near Boston.
Remember. Okay, so you could hop on a plane. Come on, we need you in Columbus. So anyway, for you listeners out there, we're going to be doing a meet and greet here in a few weeks, and yeah, I'm just I like to meet members.
I'll have to beg my boss.
There you go, beg and I don't know, give him a tissue. So all right, I'm curious, do you even use charts anymore? That's the wrong question. How have charts changed from how when you were doing, my strategy where you're scalping and all that sort of stuff to how you now use them? I'm assuming you're not quite as dependent on them given that there's now math and statistics and stuff that kind of go into some of these things. But I guess walk us through how you're now using, or how is it different in the way you use charts compared to how you used to?
It's a lot slower because you're not watching 2-minute charts, 5-minute charts. I do have the 15, the 30, and the daily. I like having those for a more broader spectrum, even though they don't really make or break my decision. They either confirm it or it's like a whatever. I mainly go by the daily. And it's really just looking for support levels and resistance levels. And obviously I'm using the RSI as well to see if it's oversold or overbought. That's pretty much all what it comes down to now with my charting. It's a lot less stressful for sure.
Yeah, and I just to kind of echo that, I'm totally in the same boat in the sense of it's not that it simplifies the technical analysis, but you're looking for much more broad things on the daily. Like you said, I pretty much solely rely on support and resistance, and I totally, I still believe in the key moving averages, but at the same time, support and resistance, like even if somebody had no idea what a moving average even was, most people know what support and resistance is, and they tend to kind of be self-fulfilling prophecies. So, but I'm in the same boat as you. I have a 30-minute chart up just to pretty much watch the intraday stuff because I'm on my computer anyways. Why not? And then it can make me sweat or get nervous for absolutely no reason at all because the only thing I need to focus on is the daily chart, like you said. But it is pretty much like you said, a drastically much slower, much less hands-on. Let the odds and probabilities work out for you. But
Chez, I got to cut you off because you just brought up a question, but you made about sometimes you say you get sweating if you start watching that 30-minute. And today, as of the recording, there was a chat in the chat room where somebody was just kind of freaking out, and you had to come in, Chez, and be like, look, that's just part of the game. There's going to be swings in your account, but you got to just let strategies do their thing.
Yeah, so my question 30 days to be right, and he was sweating about one day of the 30, and I'm like, you just need to relax. It's okay. You got 29 more days for it to kind of do something different.
Exactly. So my question to you, Etan, is how do you kind of deal with the strategy? Because, I mean, we don't need to go in the nooks and crannies of how it all works, but there are wider time frames that need to be done, but within those time frames, there can be some swings in the account. So how do you emotionally deal with that? Are you just not paying attention? Do you have any tips or tricks? But how do you deal with the account fluctuations that can occur during, as we talked about earlier, a quote-unquote cycle?
Good question. Actually,
that's all Chez. Chez is the one that just brought. He made a good point, which took us to
this is totally my wheelhouse. This is pretty much my podcast now, Clay. So you can help me
I'm just gonna go sit over in the corner and suck my thumb.
Yeah. I wasn't giving you perks, Clay. I was indirectly saying that.
Thanks for clarifying. Appreciate that.
But yeah, really, it's really the other thing that I really like about Tastyworks, and I'm sure Chez will attest to this, is they have some good layouts where it shows your pop, your probability of profit, right there and then. It shows your neutraling delta and everything, and your theta, and everything you just need to know is just right in your face. It's very, so just having the probability of profits down the list of all the positions you have, I could be like, oh, that one's 80% pop. I don't even have to look at that right now. 70, I don't need to even look at that. 50, okay, maybe I'll check this one out today. It's really that simple. If it's below maybe 50%, I'll check on it, and maybe I'll think of, I'm not going to get into the types of adjustments I'll do, but I'll start to actually seriously consider making an adjustment or rolling it even.
So, and I want to clarify because you bring up a good point. Earlier, I made the comment about, there's probabilities and statistics. I don't want to come across like, that means you have to go to college and take a statistics class and learn how to calculate standard deviations and blah, blah, blah. No, the software, as Etan touched on, is doing all these calculations for you. So thinking back, that was kind of foot and mouth for me because I made things sound too complicated. But you don't need to go and buy a statistics textbook online. The software in this day and age, beautiful thing. It's being calculated for you. So to kind of summarize your answer, the biggest trick you use is you just look at the stats, right? You just look at the statistics, the probabilities, and you let them keep you calm. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, exactly. I also keep a log of all my wins, my losses, how many I've rolled, even adjustments. And I believe I posted that, how that's been going right before you wanted to get me back on here. What was it, last week or something like that?
Yeah, a couple weeks ago.
So, I mean, that, just looking back at that, it helps you kind of get the whole picture. It's like, oh, my wins are 74%. My losses are like, I don't know, 10%. So it's like, okay, I just got to keep going at this rate, and maybe it'll steadily keep inclining, and it's been doing pretty good so far.
So this log, you're just tracking your wins and losses, or are you writing down feelings at all? I feel like this right now. That way later on you can say, oh yeah, I felt like that before, but things turned out okay. What exactly are you putting in this log?
Oh yeah, I'm putting all different sad emojis and crying and the little skull guy. No, I'm not doing any of that stuff.
That would be sweet if you did though, because that's true. I might start doing that. Clay, remember last time you felt this way? Everything still turned out okay, to try to get a log of emotions. But so you're just, what are you just putting, just numbers and stuff like that then?
Yeah, it's all just numbers. Nice and simple. No need to complicate something.
And these numbers are just telling you if you won, how much you won, how long it took you to win, or what exactly are these numbers telling you?
Not necessarily. It's really just wins, losses, and rolls. It's literally just every time I have a win, I'll add it to the column, and just so I keep track of it, I'll add like my a last win I added was this, just so I don't double add or miss it or something like that. If I have a loss, I'll add it to the column. So I have 8 right now, and so if I have another loss, I'll change that to 9. And it's just I have a little Google Sheets that shows this percentage, and it just really helps. I've noticed this with many things, not even just stock trading, but anything in general in life. If you can track it and realize that the overall picture looks good and not bleak, it's a really good emotional mindset to be in.
Yeah, totally. And it brings up such a good point. Just like, I think we touched on this. I forgot what podcast it was, Clay, but you could have 10 raving reviews on the website and then the one bad one will stick out. It's just like it's the same as, losing trades. You could have one losing trade out of 10. You could be like, oh, this isn't working, or, I'm not doing this well, or I'm bad at this and stuff like that. And actually, I would be much better off logging my stuff and doing that as well, because the biggest thing for me that I've been working on over time now is I have a bad habit of over-managing. When something's like on the cusp of me being break-even or starting to lose, I would do some kind of adjustment, and then that adjustment ultimately is my downfall, and I end up losing more, instead of just letting the odds, play out. And just like Clay said too, I want to make sure I hammer on this for you listeners out there. You do not need an advanced math degree. When we talk about probability of profit, it's literally like, statistically, 80% you have a chance of being right on this totally. 95% of the time you have a chance of being right on this totally. And it's nothing more than, a scale of 1 to 100. And I love how you said you don't even look at some of your positions when they're like, a high up number, and you only look at the ones that are going to be what I like to call the problem children, or the moldy crops on the farm. But so I want to touch on what do you use as far as a routine to spot kind of your trade ideas? Do you just kind of pull up the chart and pull up the option chain? Are you looking for ones with big gaps down, big gap up? So, what's the process for you and a routine to kind of get into a trade or pick a trade that you even want to look at?
And then also to piggyback from a time frame perspective, I mean, are you doing this stuff while you're at your job at work? Are you doing it in the evenings? So talk on it. Ches nailed it, but also from just a time frame perspective, because lots of listeners, they also have jobs. So I know that people like to hear how people fit trading into, their everyday lives, working a full-time job.
Yes, of course. I'm blessed to actually work from home. So during my lunch break, I'll probably check if I need to adjust anything during my lunch break. If not, good. I can just go right back to work. So I'm blessed with that. And like if I have any type of routine, it's really just pulling up the chart, pulling up my positions, just checking that, as I mentioned, the probability of profit column, making sure I don't need to do anything. And if I do, then I'll check out maybe if my support levels or resistance levels, if I'm short, if I'm long, and see if those are maybe still intact. If they're still intact, I might just be like, okay, I think it looks like it's going to be okay. So then I'll move on to the next thing. If there's nothing else and I'm actually looking for a position to put on, the chat comes in handy if people are talking about a certain stock that might start picking up volume and implied volatility and such like that. In which transitions into my next point is I have the IV column, the implied volatility column, sorted. So I'll sort that, make sure I can sort from the greatest to the lowest. So
that's I do the same exact thing.
Exactly,
it's very helpful. Yep.
Yeah, so that's initially how I'll pick it out. I actually do like the ETFs a little bit better because you don't have to worry about earnings. I really do not like earnings because I've been burned before with earnings. So the ETF part, not having to worry about that aspect is a huge help. So then I'll just kind of look through, make sure that if I see a stock or an ETF that has a lot of volatility, I'll check it out. I'll obviously check the options and see if there's actually liquidity in there and if I can actually gain any type of credit or premium rather in it. And if I can, then I'll check the chart and see as whether if I'm bullish, if I'm short, and then like pick a level and just stick to that. And obviously I'll have the RSI going. So if it's oversold, then all right, great. I can maybe put a short position on at a certain resistance level. And then I'll just go back to the options and then put in a trade and go from there.
So in other words, you have a system, you have a process that you follow. This is not you just randomly throwing darts or anything like that. And that's what I want to get across to, if you as a listener is like, oh, wow, that's like a lot of stuff. Well, yeah, it is a lot of stuff, but it only gets more efficient over time. Again, trade. If your process lasts 2 seconds, that tells me you're just gambling because you don't have a process as a trader.
Ooh, this looks good. Buy. Yeah, that's not a process.
I read on Stock Twits. This is good. Buy. Oh, so there's more to. That's not even trading. That's gambling. So I hope you do get a little sense of feeling overwhelmed by what he said in a good way. Just to reiterate the fact that trading is possible, but in order for it to be possible over time, it does take more than just reading the headlines, more than reading social media and, all that sort of garbage. So I guess my question is, let's break this in two parts. When you are not searching for any new positions and you're just monitoring your current crops, your current positions, how much time per day do you spend?
Not much at all. I don't want to. You're saying to be overwhelmed, but it's really not. It's not as bad as people might think. I mean, I'm sure. Again, Chess could attest to this. Is if I'm about to put on a new position, I'm only spending a few minutes on it, maybe 5 minutes most, because.
No. Okay, here's the question. Okay, no new positions. I'm going to be Etan. Hi, my name's Etan. I don't want to put on any new positions. I have these positions right here. So how long in that situation do you spend time-wise watching those positions each day?
Probably about a half hour, tops.
And that's...
So you literally took the words out of my mouth.
Okay.
This is the point I want to make, though. I got to cut you off, Clay, because this is very important.
Cut me off. Let's go.
Cut you off. This is my podcast now.
Let's go.
Welcome to Stock Trading Reality Podcast, episode 111. Now you definitely do it better than I do. You can still be the host. But
that was an insult. Yeah, I'm better at cutting you off than you are at cutting people off.
You're better at the intro.
Passive aggressive.
You're better at the intro.
Yeah. Good recovery. Anyways.
Yeah. I mean, you've done 100 of them, so I mean, it makes sense why you're better. But this is I want to make this point because just like you said, it might totally sound overwhelming to you, listening to this podcast and listening to the process we go through. But I've actually helped, in this community alone, probably 3 to 5 people who are interested in advanced options for supplementing their retirement income. And the thing for them is that they totally have the time in the world to kind of day trade because they don't have a job anymore. But they're like, I just want to almost passively make money with a small kind of time investment. And just like Etan said, I tell them this. I say, you could sit down at lunch, pop open your laptop, pop open a tablet, pop open whatever, and it will not take you more than 30 minutes to manage a full-size retirement portfolio. And all that pretty much comes into it is just like Etan said before with his other process, a few minutes on positions just to make sure they're in line, they're working well for you, and if something has gone wrong, it takes, 2 or 3 minutes to figure out the remedy and how you want to approach it. But seriously, you can manage a retirement-sized portfolio in 30 minutes or less, and to them, that's exactly what they want. They're like, I don't want to tell my wife, hey, I need to spend 6 hours at the computer to do this stuff. We want to go to the gardens or go to the movies or the theater or something like that. And that's why they always generally lean towards these advanced option strategies because they take much less hands-on approach and they're really not difficult to manage and they're really not hard to put on. It's just, the thing is that, a lot of people that get into trading, and Clay, you and I run across this all the time, and I know you've seen it in the chat before, they want to get rich overnight, the stock market, I just want to make one good trade and I want to retire. People who are doing this to supplement their retirement income, like they're just looking for a percentage of their portfolio. I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but I'm already up 17% on my entire account in about 3 months now. So making 17% on your account, like that's pretty great. Like I'm totally happy with that kind of percentage. And the same for them is, they already have money set aside in retirement. They just want to supplement it and have some more. Essentially make that money work for you. And we're all about doing that and stuff. But yeah, it really does not take as much time as you think it would.
So could you even do it probably less than, is 15 minutes still possible, Etan? I mean, on average, what do you think you do? 30 on the high side. What would you say the average would be?
Man, that's tough to judge. because like I'm sitting on my computer all day, so I do have the stuff up. But if nothing's going, if I look quick and notice nothing is going wary on me, I mean, it's not going to take any time of my day, really.
Okay, so average, on the gamut of things, high side you already gave us 30 minutes. But if it's kind of just a yawning type thing, which is good for you, farmers, then is it literally like just a few glances at your computer? Okay, done, moving on.
Yeah, it could definitely be like that.
Okay, so when Chaz and Eaton are saying 30 minutes, that's not 30 minutes every single day. I mean, that could be if there's some problem children coming up, but it could very well be much at the other end of the spectrum, which is barely any time at all. Okay, and then for the second part, go ahead, Chaz.
Yeah, I was just going to touch on what you said. If there's nothing happening in the market, you could literally glance at your positions for 4 minutes and close the platform and be done for the day. Like, it's not always going to take 30 minutes, like you said.
Okay.
So, yeah, you totally nailed it.
Okay, perfect. And then Eaton, okay, hi, my name is Eaton. I'm not happy with the number of positions I have open. I would like to add a position. So how long does that process, actually take you now that you've gotten efficient and such with that?
To add in a position, really?
Yeah, to find one and then add one in.
It's probably 5-10 minutes max to add one in, and I might be even like overestimating with that.
And that includes finding it, right?
That's include finding it. Yep.
Okay, so to just kind of, I guess, circle back and nutshell this point here, not a time-heavy strategy. Is it going to make you rich overnight? No. Is it going to make you rich in the next 6 months? No. Can it be scalable to the point where you just have money continually trickling in? Yeah, absolutely. And over time, money trickling in really starts to add up. So it's a game of patience. It's a game of discipline. And, in life in general, if you want something now, yeah, good luck with life. Good luck with having any sort of long-term success in anything, because that's just not quite how the world works. But speaking of long-term time, I know you just took my Grow Rich, and you had made a comment about this earlier. So what are your plans? What are you now doing with the whole Grow Rich course, that you took? And this will be kind of a good kind of final thing to end on looking at the time. But talk to us about Grow Rich. And for you listeners, that is a course that I released that goes over my personal strategy for retirement, how I'm saving. And I'll say, because I have no problem saying it, how I'm going to retire with millions of dollars. And it's not like that's a gimmick. The only con is, well, it's going to take decades upon decades. But hey, with time on my side, I'm going to retire with millions. So you just took that course. And what are you going to be doing with that?
Yeah, I actually just finished it yesterday because I wanted to get it done before this podcast. It actually was probably one of my favorite courses, if not my most favorite. That's the kind of strategies and everything like that I've always liked, and I've always known about certain things that you were mentioning in there. But it's a different perspective, and it built on what knowledge I already had. So I've already collected. I printed the sheets that you give us and started writing down certain things, and I posted in the forum as you saw what some of the positions I mentioned were, and some might not be grandma status if some of you don't know what that means. But I wanted to branch off of what we were saying before. Is a big mindset hurdle I want to say to get over is the fact that, oh, I'm not going to get rich overnight with this or that. That's fine. That was one of my biggest hurdles. So it's going to happen.
And the course helped you with that?
Yeah, any of the courses, especially the risk versus reward.
Okay, and I guess I'm just talking now because you made an interesting comment. Because one thing I was worried about is this stuff too basic? But it sounds like you understood some of the stuff that I was talking about in the course, but I was able to build upon that. Is that what?
Exactly.
You're okay. Well, good. That's reassuring then.
And stuff like that. I already,
right.
That's what I've always looked for and stuff like that. So this was like a huge helper, a new perspective, and even a branch off of. It's funny I use branch because money tree and everything.
There we go.
Like that,
yeah,
but,
pun intended there.
But it's a nice branch off of what I already had known and what I've kind of looked into before.
And is the sequence that I lay out, does that make sense from a logical perspective about first you look at this and then you look at that and then that all makes good logical sense?
Yeah, the whole money tree term and leaves and branches, it definitely puts things into perspective. I've noticed that with a lot of your videos that you're pretty good at making things make sense to us dumb people.
Hey, I'm the dumbest of all dumb people, which is why in my mind, all right, how can I simplify this so my dumb mind can actually comprehend this? Because being dumb pays off, I guess, because like I said, I'll stand by that. I am not the sharpest tool in the shed, which just makes me have to, think, Clay, how can I make this so it makes sense to me? So good. I appreciate that feedback, and I'm glad, as of the recording, whenever you buy a course, you also there's a forum that comes with it where you can interact and ask questions. So within the Grow Rich, one of the forums is just, hey, what are you looking at? And there's several of us that are always in there. Hey, I'm looking at this. I'm looking at that. Hey, I just bought some of this. So yeah, Etan, you posted your list. I had some constructive criticism, but at the end of the day,
of course,
as you know, it's all about behavior. It's all about those habits that you got to form, and it sounds like you're fully on board to doing all that. How's your tree coming, Chaz?
My tree is non-existent. My
Kelly Trader's got a tree going, right?
So she has a tree going, and I'm actually in the process of shifting that from kind of diversified mutual funds to I'm going to take full-blown over it. So I just actually we put all the papers in so that I have like access to the logins and all that. So haven't actually dug into it yet, but I am prepared. And yeah, that course, pretty much like you said, Etan, the way you put it, Clay, is very, very great from kind of like the overarching standpoint to kind of the smaller branches on the tree. So I'm really looking forward to doing that. My dad was a big proponent of that all through his pretty much, employed life, and it's paid off from very, very handsomely. So I'm excited to kind of get that going too.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll speak to my parents too. My parents, they got started a little bit later. One of their things, I wish I would have started sooner. But yeah, I'll put it this way. They're not going to be a burden to me. It's not like they're going to be hitting me up for money in retirement all the time because they never set anything aside. It worked out well. I like how you put that, Chaz. So, Etan, looking up at the clock here, we're almost going on an hour. Man, thanks for coming back. You've to go from scalping like I do to now where you're at, where you're just farming, continually kind of being lazy. Oh, which brings up the final question. You said you may want to revisit what you were paper trading, way back when, quote unquote, my strategy. What would need to prompt that? Are you looking for some sort of account value? I mean, or is it just a matter of time? I guess I'm curious,
it's a matter of time.
Okay. So with your job and stuff, it's just strictly a matter of time.
Exactly. I'm also kind of trying to save up a little bit so I can maybe buy some property or such. So, I mean, that's definitely going to have a huge factor in it as well.
What kind of property are you looking at?
Either a condo, maybe a two-family. Income property.
I'd go two family. You live on the other side. Get them to pay your mortgage for you. You build that equity, and then
Let me tell you about the 10 acres of land I'm about to buy. You could build whatever size house you want, and you can pay for pretty much the mortgage on the land. So how about that? Does that sound like a good deal?
Are you about to get 10 acres out in Denver?
My God.
Trying to get 5 to 10 acres towards Colorado Springs, so about an hour south. But it's just beautiful there after my trip, and prices are great. So that's what we're going for.
Yeah, what's the price per acre out there, Chaz, give or take?
It depends. I mean, I found some that were for 5 acres that were like under 20 grand, which is absolutely
insane. Are you kidding
me? It's nutty. So here's the thing, though. Remember, we're not building, say, a traditional house where you have to lay a slab. A lot of these, they're on hillsides and they're on the sides of mountains. So, you're gonna have to do some work on the land. You're gonna have to pipe in your utilities most of the stuff is run under the streets. That's how they kind of do it out there, and you get it to where you need it to. But I mean, there's electric, there's internet, there's water, and we want to do solar panels and all that stuff. And yeah, it's going to be. I'm very, very excited. I'm trying to get this all kind of completed by the end of the year, at least the land purchase. I don't want to finish the house, and it's going to be a process. But very excited. When I saw those prices,
you better put it all on black at that pace. Then if you got to have it all.
No. But we hopefully we'll get the land before the end of the year, and that alone, I just absolutely hate renting. It drives me up the wall, but it's a necessary evil before you kind of where do you want to put your roots, and that's what me and Kelly have been figuring out.
Well, I always tell people renting is an insurance policy. What's an insurance policy on? It's an insurance policy on flexibility. My sister and her husband, they live out in California, and they want to buy, but they're not quite sure. Do we want to stay in California? And I said, Mark, who is my brother, I said, Mark, listen, man, rent, I get it. It sucks, but look at it as an insurance policy on your flexibility. Once you own a house, you can't just get up and do something. You got to freaking sell that thing first, and that can be a pain. So, Ches, you're just paying an insurance policy right now in order to give yourself flexibility to do the wise things from a financial perspective. So, and at Etan, I really, for those listeners, I like real estate because I do invest in real estate myself. I have 11 investment properties right now. I could talk about this stuff all day long too, but yeah, if you can pull off a duplex, that's the ticket right there. Just get yourselves good tenants.
That's the dream.
Yeah, and let them pay your mortgage, man.
That's the idea. My buddy actually just did it, and so far so good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's all about screening the tenants, getting somebody good in there. Because that would just be awkward if you have to like be banging on your neighbor's door all the time. Yeah, you owe me money from like 3 months ago, so it's all about screening the tenants. But there's a lot of good stuff out there on that. So Etan, man, we'll definitely have to have you back at some point in time because I want to continue to hear about your journey. It's great to know that you've gone from paper to now doing real money, but real money in just a whole different way. So any final thoughts, or are we good to go?
I think that pretty much sums it up. It's a good,
all right,
good way to end it on property.
Yeah, I agree. For you listeners out there and members of the community, yeah, Etan, I'm not going to say he's in the chat room every single day, but he's definitely a staple. He's been around for a long time. Like I said, episode 38. Yeah, fairly active. Episode 38. So he is, not brand new to the community by any stretch. So if you see him in the chat room, yeah, he's a sort of a nice guy. You can ask him questions or whatever, or just give him a shout out. Let him know that you enjoyed the podcast. So Etan, thank you much. Thank you very much. Ches, thank you very much, our esteemed co-host. And for you listeners out there, thank you very much. And before I go, a final few things. If you're listening on the website itself, click that share button, leave us a comment. We will read and reply. If you're listening on iTunes or any of the other podcast players, make sure to subscribe. Hopefully you decide to leave us a good rating. Little ratings like that truly do go a long way. And then finally, if you're listening on YouTube, there are plenty of other videos on the channel, so check out the channel. Definitely subscribe to it, and that way you can keep up to date on all the good stuff. So thank you again, Etan. Thank you again to you as viewers. I will see everybody back. We will see everybody back. My bad, Ches. It's been a long day. We will see everybody back next week.
This has been the Stock Trading Reality Podcast. Thanks for taking the time to hang out. To learn more about Clay and the Clay Trader community, including the trading team, premium training, and more, visit claytrader.com.